before we begin talking about the effects of World War I on the rest of the world, we need to discuss this word here. Depression. When I say that word, what does it mean to you, Gabby? What does that word mean to you? Depression. Bad economics. Okay? You gave the answer away first. But what does it mean to you, Caitlin? Depression. Sadness. And what, Omar, does the depression mean to you?
Depression?
Yes.
Like when someone's going like through hardship, over in the country going through hardship, like Great Britain and the US where people didn't have food and had this shit in the society. No, it's not funny. I'm very literally.
I know, you're right. You're right. And so you brought both of them together. So you said when somebody's going through hardship. And what Gabby said is that is bad economics. And when we say economics, what do we mean again?
Money.
We mean money. So, and somebody else said, Katie said sadness. So, it's when we say it, depression is going to mean just this, bad economics. The country is going through a hardship economically, meaning with their money. Alright, so let's keep that in mind as we're going through these notes. The ones on the first page is what we're going through first.
Do you rate those?
No, you don't have to because we're going to talk about it in a little bit. So, right after the war, right after World War I, millions of soldiers die all around the world. Remember, it was an entire world war, right? Right after the war, it was called the Great War, not because it was great, and it wasn't called World War I until after World War II. Does that make sense? Right? They didn't name the world wars before it happened. And because so many people died, and it cost so much money, and so much land was destroyed, there was this movement throughout the entire world of peace. After a time of strife and battle and disaster, you want to be peaceful. Remember, we talked about the Paris Peace Conference after World War I. The whole goal was what? To stop fighting. Non-violent resolutions must be found. That's what these people are saying. So, a couple of examples. The League of Nations. Anybody remember what the League of Nations? Right. So they come together. They form this group. They say, hey, we're going to meet every once in a while, and we are going to decide how to resolve conflict without fighting. Because we don't want to fight anymore. This is ridiculous. Killed millions of people because of all those bad things, whatever. So that comes together. We'll talk about how inadequate the League of Nations is in a little bit. Then people like Mohandas Gandhi are going to come through and protest peacefully. Okay? Who's another example of somebody who protests peacefully? Martin Luther King Jr., right? So that would be another one that comes to mind. That's going to happen after this time period. Gandhi would have been during that time period. But he comes together and he says, look, we can protest, we can solve this conflict without going to war. Very good. All right, let's move on. So there are going to be some... Oh, apologize. Go back. There are going to be some things that happen in art that are going to show this idea of peace. And it's called pacifism. Now, what does that word look like? pacifism. What does that word look like? What? A pacifist, right? So you're passive. That means you kind of go with the flow of things. You're not angry. You don't let things get to you to the point of being violent. So this movement of pacifism and then anxiety. What does anxiety mean? Being anxious, okay, so you're using anxious and anxiety. But what does that mean? Like, what kind of feelings do you have?
Anxiety?
You're waiting for something to happen.
You want it to happen so badly, and you get like nervous and like jumpy, right?
You know, it's a big thing. Anxiety.
What? We were talking about coffee earlier. Coffee makes you anxious, right? That's why people say that it gives you energy, but too much of it makes you extremely anxious. So we're going to see this in art. Now, Mr. Kerr, this isn't an art class. Why the heck are we talking about art? Art is boring. Why does art always get brought up? What part of life does art show? Maybe spiritual. The artsy part. Right. Let's think of modern day. Right now. What does art express for all of you? Or at least some of you? Feelings, thoughts, right? Now, I'm not talking about everybody in here can draw me a beautiful painting. I'm not talking about everybody in here can build me a sculpture. What other kind of art, and what art do we use every single day, probably? What form of art? Music. Right. And we could take any genre of music and say how it expresses the artist's life. Let's take rap and hip-hop, for example. What does rap and hip-hop say, generally? I'm afraid to ask. Yes. Alright, so sex, drugs, money, and guns. Now, why do rappers or hip-hop artists, some, all, not all, we have to boil it down, right? We have to simplify it, that's okay. So why do they talk about sex, drugs, money, and guns? That's how they were raised. That's their life, right? So let's take a different example. Let's talk about country music. What does country music talk about?
Josh something talked about love.
Love? What else? Lots of ballads in country music. Love. And getting to what you were saying about killing squirrels, it gets to a different kind of life, a country style of life, right? Some people would call, lots of beer is talked about, but maybe like some people call it redneck or hillbilly music, right? But it's just a different kind of life.
Hillbilly music, though. I was up there in what's the name? I think it was.
Yeah.
And they're all racist. They're all hillbilly. Their music.
I wouldn't say all of them are racist. However, there might be some. It's ironic, though. I'm going to take a little side note here. West Virginia actually broke away from Virginia because of slavery. They didn't want to have slavery anymore. So that's serious. Well, it's different now.
You went to the store, right?
So just because you didn't agree with slavery doesn't make you a non-racist. Plenty of Northerners are racist, even though they way back didn't believe in slavery, right? Different. But that's unfortunately for our class. That is either a U.S. history topic or combating intolerance topic, which I'm teaching next year again. All right, so let's get into what we're talking about here. I'll go real quick. So paintings are going to start rebelling against tradition because tradition got us into war in the first place. So there's going to be a couple of things. Abstract art, we're going to look at Guernica by Picasso. Surrealism, what does that word look like? Or what's the root word here? Realism, so that means things that are real. But this prefix, sur, means what? What does that mean? Another word that we talked about today, anti. What does anti mean? Again, so it's non-realism, essentially. Okay? And then we have social realism. And when I say social, what am I talking about? What am I talking about when I say social stuff?
Socialism, you go around, like the teachers of God, when you come talk to God. Social, you go out and talk to people.
Okay, so you go and talk to people, right? So it's people. It's real stuff. It's not just we boil history down so much to countries, world leaders, things like that. But we never stop and talk about what was happening to the 99% of the other people who don't have anything to do with the government, right? So social stuff means people. And then music. Different forms of jazz music are going to show sort of, again, that rebellious tone in all right, so here's a piece of abstract art. So underneath, you're going to write down Guernica next to this one by Pablo Picasso. Many of you have heard of Picasso before.
What are we going to write?
You're going to write where it's set right underneath this painting on yours. You're going to put Guernica by Pablo Picasso. And I could ask Sean, what is this painting about? No idea. All right. What's the first thing that you see? Just look away and then look at it. What's the first thing you see? So you see a bunch of animal heads. Okay. We'll take that, Sean. So a bunch of animal heads. Leslie, what do you see first thing? Which person? This one? Okay. Omar, what do you see? You see limbs?
Yeah, like legs and arms.
Legs and arms down here. Johnson, what do you see?
I see the eyes, see everything.
You see arm suit? Alright, so I asked 4 different people. We pretty much got 4 different answers. Abstract art is going to do that for people. It's a very emotional piece of art form that you see different things than everybody else. And that's exactly what it's supposed to do. So you're going to see different things no matter what. And depending on what you're feeling, this is going to give you different emotions as well. Okay? So that's why it's a different form of art. Now let's go into surrealism, and this is The Persistence of Memory by Salvador Dali. That's what you have to write underneath that painting. And this one's a little bit different. And this shows more, not of the pacifism, but of the anxiety in art during this time. And what do we see in here generally? This one might be more concrete. We might be able to nail down what the emotions are in here. Okay, so time. And what is happening to time? It's going by maybe slow. It's melting away, right? But there's some weird things in here, right? Is this real life? No. You don't see this stuff happen unless you're tripping on some high-profile drug, right? But what do we see? And I always like to point out this thing in the middle here. And I like to ask what this is. Some people even try to fight me. Not literally.
What is it?
Okay, it looks like a sock. Daniel has no idea what it is. Is it a dead animal? Daniel found it. It's an eye. Here are the eyelashes.
Hey, yo, the other one had an eye too.
Yes, it did. Eyelashes, we see them?
It did.
I,
Yeah, but I got it.
Hey, yo, can I ask you?
No.
All right then.
all right. So yes, we see an eye there. All right. Next thing. Yeah, we got bird in our other class. All right, here is a picture of social realism. Now you don't have to write anything down. Again, this is in well, what language is that in? Anybody know?
That.
Russian. Yes, it is in Russian. And when we look at that, what kind of emotion do you get from this? They're happy, right? Wait, what'd you say? They're happy, hard-working people.
Yeah, you look like
They're not.
it's attractive.
Daniel, say that again.
They're not.
They're not what?
It's a lie.
It's a lie, right? This, though it could be real, right? This is real life. It's not like the last one where you have things melting away. But this is showing what could be a real life. And in fact, whoever made this wants you to think that these people are happy workers. So what do we call this? False advertising. You're getting there. What'd you say? Huh? Not sarcasm. Starts with a P. Propaganda. Right? The Soviet Union is going to put out flyers like this. The United States will do it, the British will do it, the French will do it, the Germans will do it. Everybody's going to do it during this time period. To show what they want you to see. To get emotions that they create in you. It's not like the last two paintings where you have the emotion and you feel the emotion in the painting. It is stuff that they want you to feel. They want you to feel happy. They want you to feel patriotic or nationalistic. You know what? We do need to be good workers. We do need to be happy. That's what's going to create our great country. All right, and then we have something of an American invention, and that's jazz music.
Wait.
I do that. That's a broken link.
Wait, didn't blues come from America though?
The blues also come from America after jazz. And jazz music is doing two things. Anybody ever heard jazz music?
Yeah. I like this.
What? Okay, you said saxophone. So what about a saxophone? What does saxophone have to do with jazz music?
And
Brings flavor to it. So to this point, for the most part, there was music and there was singing. Jazz music brings them together. We have instrumental music, music that you can move to, and singing all at the same time. And jazz is extremely controversial in America because it was the first real dance music. And when people dance, it's usually men and women dancing with each other, what kinds of emotions do you get? Be honest.
That sexy emotion.
Sexual emotions, right?
I didn't say sexual, I said sexy emotion.
Well, you might get sexy emotions, right? And much different than dancing today. But still, it evokes these emotions in you. And jazz music is definitely going to be a key tenet of the 20s in America, where there was happy feelings. And everything was happy-go-lucky, right? It was during a time of prohibition. And what was prohibition? No.
Prohibition was the
Some people were
outlaw
probably
of
depressed.
alcohol.
Yes, the outlaw of alcohol. However, the irony is that, well, eventually, yeah, of course we got it back legally, but during that time there was plenty of bootlegging and plenty of drinking going on anyway. And coupled with jazz music, again, it brings different emotions. All right, let's move on to some more depressing stuff. Other influences. There's going to be a great epidemic or pandemic of 1918, and that's going to be of the flu. the flu is going to take 50 million people's lives worldwide.
Cool.
Not really, but it's going to be bad. Now, the flu still takes people's lives today on a very smaller scale. We have medicines and antibiotics that knock out the flu. But during this time, for whatever reason, there was a strand of the flu that came out, that morphed, emerged, whatever, that killed 50 million people worldwide.
Wait, did the U.S. think that they were doing chemical warfare? Somebody was doing this, but
Well,
like they were releasing
this really killed. It killed about 600,000 600,000 Americans. But it's really going to kill millions and millions of people in Spain for whatever reason. Again, without the technology that we have today, without the medicines that we have today, the flu was a big killer, especially in 1918. So again, depressing times in most of the world. All right, so we have the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty that was signed by the countries after World War I, minus the United States, where Germany has to pay reparations. And reparations is the word for what? What is reparations? Reparations. Well, they not only have to help, but they have to fund it, meaning they have to pay for it. So they are supposed to pay $33 billion in reparations. They have to front the entire cost of the bill for reparations. They lose 13% of its territory. That's a lot. They lose a lot of countries, right? And countries are created out of that territory. Poland, Czechoslovakia, and others are going to be created. And they are going to lose control of the Rhineland for 15 years. A very influential and heavily compounded piece of territory with natural materials. So what kind of effect is this going to have on Germany, do you think? It's going to have a huge effect, yes? Go deeper. They go into their own depression. Now, on a scale of how big, is it bigger than the United States depression? Is it smaller? What do we think? Bigger is an understatement. It is so crippling to the Germans in so many ways. We're going to do an assignment in a little bit. But unemployment is going to skyrocket. People can't afford to pay their workers. And when you don't have workers, what also don't you have? Jobs. When you don't have a job, what don't you have? Money. When you don't have money, you can't do what? You can't buy things. So it has a crippling and trickle-down effect that is terrible. They do what's called deficit spending. Now, if you pay attention to the news, you might have heard this before. Anybody know what deficit spending is? Well, they go on a spending spree, but where are they getting the money from? Okay, so they do print out new money, but where? Let me put it a different way. What does the word deficit mean? Deficit. What does that mean?
Oh, no, dude.
You don't know, dude. What does it look like?
Like you're devastated?
All right, you're devastated, yes, but it means something a little bit different. Deficit means that you are,
The amount.
well, it's the amount. Keep going. Read the rest.
Sum of money.
Okay, sum of money. How much do you have of it? You have very little or none. You are spending money that you don't have, is what it means. So the government, the Weimar Republic, is spending money that they do not have in order to try to stimulate the economy. So they're spending it on social programs. They're trying to build up infrastructure, trying to build roads, schools, hospitals, things like that. The United States is going to do this during our own depression. High inflation. What does the word inflation mean? No, this is not an economics class. Yeah, value of money goes down. Very good. And the government in Germany, the Weimar Republic, remember, they take over the kingdom of Germany, and was unpopular and attacked from two sides of the political spectrum. One, from the National Socialists. And the National Socialists are going to turn into what party eventually? In Germany. The National Socialists. Try to say it fast. The Nazis. Very good. This is going to eventually turn into the Nazis, who will take over in 1931 to 33, and the Communists. All right. So different sides of the political spectrum, extremely conservative, extremely liberal, are going to attack the Weimar Republic because they are not helping the matter at all. Let's move on. So continuing on with reparations. I think there's one more. There we go. There's going to be extreme inflation. The value of money is going to plummet. But the world tries to help out. The Americans are going to thrive after World War I. One of the only countries to do so because they take out loans, they give out loans to the countries who are paying off war reparation debt, mostly to Germany. So they are continuously getting this influx of money from outside. But in 1924, they realized, you know what? Germany's having a tough time with this. So they refinance the debt payments. Anybody ever heard of like refinancing your mortgage or refinancing your car? Anybody ever heard that? That's exactly what the Dawes Plan does in the United States. It helps out Germany by restructuring their loan, helps them out a little bit. In 1929, a plan further restructures and reduces the amount of money that Germany has to give. Again, trying to help them out because say I tell Brianna that Brianna, you have a job, right? You and you're like, what do you do? You work at Five Below, so you're a cashier or something, stock shop. All right, so Brianna makes maybe like $150 a week. Oh, you just started yesterday. So Brianna is going to make about, we'll say $200 a week. She's going to work a bunch of shifts without her schoolwork dropping. And so she makes $200 a week. But what if I said to Brianna that you owe me $500 a week? How are you going to be able to do that? Are you going to be able to do that? No. So, well, that's what the United States said. Like, they're like, oh, Germany can't do that. So they restructure. They say, you know what? I'd rather some money than no money at all. So they say to Brianna in 1924, okay, all you have to give me is $180 a week. You make $200, it's fine. And Brianna's like, all right, whatever. So she gives me the $180 a week. Now, I see that Brianna's going to struggle. She's only going to make $20 a week for working a whole lot. So in 1929, I'm like, okay. I'm crippling Brianna, right? She's working all this time. She's still poor because she barely gets any money. I'm taking most of her money. So I say, look, I'm going to reduce your payments even more. You only have to give me $100 a week because I'd rather something while you still get better so that you can pay me for a longer time. Except, guess what else happens in 1920? The United States stock market crashes. And it sends the United States into depression as well. In 1929, Brianna stops paying me. The payments are frozen. And in 1933, after Adolf Hitler takes over, Brianna, or Germany, stops paying altogether. They make no more payments on those loans. So, you should, I know. Too bad. Too bad you did. Except Adolf Hitler takes over. You know. So, let's take a look at some pictures. Picture taken in Germany, 1920 or so. Kids are playing. They're having a good time. They don't care that the Depression is going on. They're playing, right? What are they playing with?
Money.
Yeah, they're playing with stacks of money. See that? See that kid?
Who is?
Those kids are playing with stacks of money.
Wait, is that a real picture? It's just,
That's a real picture,
yeah.
and that's real money.
Is that U.S. money?
No, that's German marks.
But remember, they went to an inflation.
Inflation, so the money's worth less.
Probably $1 for it there at that time was like
Omar,
inflation.
you're getting ahead of us. We're going to do something. We're going to show you how much the German money was worth in just like 10 minutes. Alright? Cool. So, they're playing. Why are they playing with money?
That's all they have.
Well, that's all they have. That looks like a hell of a lot. Why are they playing with money?
To show other people they rich.
No.
All of my kids feel
Because
rich.
the
If I had
money is
money.
practically worthless.
The money's worthless. And it would have been more expensive to buy a toy than to let them play with money. For real.
1 million more.
Well, less than that. We're going to get there later.
But is she burning fire too? For the firewood? She was eating.
It was cheaper to put money in the furnace.
That's like Pablo Escobar talking shit.
It's cheaper to put money in there than to buy firewood.
Who was this?
During the 1920s.
For the American or for...
No, this is for Germany. This is for Germany.
Alright, so imagine, alright. Because, alright, America didn't know that Germany didn't, went through a inflation, right?
Yeah.
Alright, and the German person brought stacks of money to the U.S. and you know how you could exchange foreign money for American money? Would America give them how much it's worth here? Or would they know?
Well, they would know. So they would give exactly what it was worth here, which was nothing. Which, again, we're going to find out in an activity that we're going to start today.
I don't want to know that.
You do. All right, so the Great Depression. Why does the Great Depression start? I just had a bit of, what's it called? Deja vu right there. That was weird. So the United States, it happens there as well, but it happens later. So why does it happen? Because the United States economy is a little bit flawed. 5% of the population owns 33% of the income. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22, 3. We'll say 5%. And here would be 2 people. Daniel and Brianna, stand up. Oh, just stand a little. I'm just going to make you stand. You sit down a little bit. So Daniel and Brianna are representing the 5% of Americans who own 33% of the money. 33%, what does that mean in here? That is... So 8 of you. So Kenny, Darnell, Johnson, Jesse, Tyler, Eliezer, Katie, and Sean. All raise your hands. So in this class, Daniel and Brianna own all of their money. Is that fair? Well, for you two, it's fair. Right? So, okay, go ahead and sit down. So, it's not fair if you look at it like that. But it is fair for those two. And guess who was in control during the 1920s? The rich. So they say, this is fair. But the rest of you are like, holy crap, this is not fair. There is a great boom of new technology. Vacuum cleaner. Dishwashers. Lots of different products. Washing machines. All that kind of stuff. Could be made during the 1920s. And what? Huh?
Wasn't the zipper invention?
Okay, yes, zippers is going to be an invention, so different clothes. Except the United States economy is going to put it so much out there, they overproduce. And when you have too much of a good in the market, what happens to the price? It goes way down. Okay, so prices are not matching what it's making to cost them. Then we have the stock market crash in 1929. People did what they called buying on margin. Okay, and what that means, does anybody know what that means? Buying on margin or buying on credit? Elliot?
I learned it in
Oh, so you don't know. Okay, that's fine. So, basically, how the stock market works is you buy shares of a company, and their worth goes up or down every single day. So, if I want to buy 10 shares of Apple stock, Apple the company, no, it's not quite that high. We'll say it's $100 just to make numbers easy. Okay, so I want to buy 10 shares of Apple at $100 a share. That's $1,000 that I have to pay to get those shares. It did, but buying on margin means that I don't have to put all $1,000. And in fact, I only have to put 3%. So that means I only have to pay $30 to get $1,000 worth of stock. Now, if I do that, what's going to happen? Apple stock hopefully goes up. We'll say it goes up a couple percent. Well, since I now own those stocks, and Apple goes up to say $110 a share, I'm going to sell my $10 a share for $1,100. I'm going to make some money, but I never actually paid for that. So the prices are artificially high because people can buy stock extremely easily. They don't have to pay it all at once. And then there's no money actually in the stock market because there's so much margin and people are having to buy it back and all that kind of stuff. It's confusing stuff, but essentially it's artificially high. And then there's a panic one day. People start realizing that there's no actual money behind all these stocks. And on the large scale, people start pulling their money out. They're pulling their money out left and right. And if you pull your money out, I'm going to pull mine out, and then Jesse's going to pull his out, and then Leslie's going to pull hers out, and then Omar's going to pull his out, and everybody pulls it out, and then there's no money behind it. Everybody starts losing money. Not good. So what's going to happen? Oh, dang it. So factory production is cut in half. Now that needed to happen. Remember, they were overproducing goods. 9 million people lose all of their money from the bank. Now that means that when Katie goes to the bank and she puts in her ATM card and she's got $2,000 in the bank, she's got some money. She pulls out, she's going to pull out $400 because she wants to go buy herself some new clothes and shoes and things like that. She's going to go to the mall. When she gets to the bank, slides that ATM, puts in her PIN number. Bank says, sorry, we don't have any money. Katie, what are you going to do? You're going to go crazy. You're going to go into the bank and say, look, I had $2,000 in my account. Here is what I had. Here's my statement. It says that I have the money. Give me it. And they say, we don't have it. We lost all our money. We don't have any. What are you going to do? What would you do, Kenny, if you went to the bank and they said, we don't have your money? You'd be mad. Daniel? Mad? Omar?
Yeah.
What would you do? You go to the bank, you show up, you know you got money in the bank. The bank teller says, we don't have your money.
I'll say put your hand up.
But they don't have any money at all. They lost it all.
I guess I'm not gonna take the title of the bank, right? Since they use my money, we're allowed to take half of their shit. So basically, the bank is mine.
Guess what? They say, take us to court.
For real.
Because we don't have any money at all, dude.
No prices.
Now today, your money is insured up to $250,000 per bank account that you have. So that can't happen today. But then, it did happen. People lost everything. Everything that they had in the bank. Would you trust a bank after that? No. And many Depression-era people will not trust a bank for the rest of their lives. There are people who start just putting money in their mattresses, put it in a shoebox, and leave it in their house.
Didn't that lead up to more crime?
That would lead up to a whole lot of crime, yes. Farmers lose their land and they cannot pay their mortgage. Not only can they not pay their mortgage, but there's also the Dust Bowl that happens during the 30s as well, where there's an extreme drought throughout the entirety of Middle America, where most of our farm stuff is
But
produced.
once the farm belonged to the bank, that they have the money in?
There was more private owners of mortgages then than there are today. Today the bank would own most of them, but then it was more private.
Yeah, kid.
And not all banks are going to close.
No, I mean, imagine if, like, every bank, they have money, right?
Right.
So
Well, it wasn't every bank, but most. You're right.
Most of the banks
Uh-huh.
that have money, and then that bank owed you land,
Yeah.
and the people that they had the money with
Mhm.
were paying the land that they own,
Yeah.
and they didn't have money, so the bank didn't have money. What would they do?
Both of them would be gone. I mean, the people would have to give up their farm. They'd be homeless. And the bank goes out of business. People would show up to their banks and there'd be a sign on the door that says, sorry, we're closed. We're done. It was a crazy, crazy time. By 1933, 33% of Americans are unemployed. 33%. Does that sound like a high number? That's extremely high.
Like 5%.
Right, I was just about to ask, what is the current... Now, you hear that America's in economic turmoil, right? It's not very good in America. Is that hard to get a job? Unemployment rate is high. You hear that in the news, right?
Dude, our economy went down since Obama.
Our economy went down since Obama won, and you hear that on the news, right? What is our unemployment rate?
65.
5.5%.
Oh, so I was right the first time?
When President Obama took office, what was it?
Excuse me?
Like 6.
It was 9.
It's like 9. It's like 9%. Went up to 10% under his administration too. It went up after he took office. It's down to 5.5%. And people are saying all over the news that our economy is terrible. That it's hard to find jobs. Now, this number's a little skewed probably. Looks better than it is. Because people can stop looking for work at all. But it's not 33%. That's for sure. Right? Okay. Let's move on. A couple more slides, I believe. So what happens worldwide? We have England, who's going to increase their taxes and their tariffs